very pleased. I got the applause when we went after the Fed, but what really fascinated me is when they started pulling out Federal Reserve notes and burning them. Probably the ashes are going to be worth more than the paper pretty soon. But you know, the issues are coming into place. The two issues that I've worked on for so many years, now decades. First, it was the monetary issue associated with our economy and the business cycle. And then in the last decade or so, since we as Republicans have gone really downhill with the foreign policy has become a very important issue. So I have spent a lot of time on that, but you know, the evidence is out there, and I think this is one of the reasons why there is such a strong response, especially with the young people, when they're realizing what they're inheriting. They're inheriting these problems and the debt and the entitlement system.
We don't want it!
Inheriting a war that should have never been fought in the first place. So one thing I do feel good about is the fact that we have been able to reach many libertarians, many conservatives, many constitutionalists that really didn't have much of a home, and they didn't feel like there were enough of them and us out there to really take the position to show that our side of the political spectrum can be opposed to war. And that should be our position. That's the constitutional position. With our foreign policy, with our domestic economic problems. Because now, we as a nation have obligated ourselves to approximately $1 trillion a year to manage our empire. And it's money we don't have. It's money we tax the people, then we can't tax anymore. We borrow, we can't borrow anymore. Then, of course, you know the answer. Then they go to the Fed and they print a lot more money. Then they wonder why we have problems. You know, it is so clear. Today, there's a lot of talk here on the Hill about solving our energy problems. And on our side of the aisle, they did pick up on one point. It's a reasonable point, but it's almost a distraction. Because they say, you know what we need to do to solve the energy crisis is drill, drill, drill. And that's supposed to solve all the problems. Of course, you know, drilling certainly could be helpful, and if we had more oil, it could play a role. But you have to look at the cost of energy and the cost of our gasoline from a different perspective. One, the value of the dollar. The value of the dollar goes down when you print too many. When you have a foreign policy where you are motivated to do this, obviously us going to the Middle East to protect our oil didn't work so well. Right now is so unstable, and with the threat that this war could spread, there's a risk premium put in there on a daily basis. So the foreign policy has pushed that cost of energy up. But then again, the value of the dollar goes down. But paying for the foreign policy in combination with the risk that we have involved, all the drilling in the world won't put, you know, value back into the dollar. We need a sound political system, sound foreign policy, and sound financial system. I've been going to the floor to talk about HCON Res 362. Something that should not be brought to the floor. It should be defeated, but rather within a couple days, if not a week, they had 220 co-sponsors. Fortunately, though, this week I was able to quote two of the sponsors of the bill who were changing their minds because they realized it is so aggressive. It is actually literally advocating a blockade of Iran. That won't help us. Now, the best way to get others to realize the danger of this, and I brought this up in the committee as well as on the House floor, consider what it would be like if a foreign country, a strong government came and they were powerful enough to impose on us a restriction that we couldn't import petroleum products, that they would control all ships, boats, planes, and trains and trucks coming into our country, and all the control of the people. Now, what would we as Americans do? I bet we'd be unified and we'd want to do something about it. That's exactly what we're doing, and that's exactly what we're threatening. At the same time, we're pretending that our policy is supposed to be undermining Ahmadinejad in Iran. Well, I'll tell you what, if somebody comes and threatens us, I mean, we get unified. Just think, after 9/11, we weren't fighting among ourselves because we saw us being threatened, and it brings people together. So the dissidents in Iran right now are being hurt, and Ahmadinejad is being helped. Now, sometimes I wonder if it isn't deliberate so that we always have an enemy out there that we have to keep the military-industrial complex going.
Terrorists are in the White House.
It's either that or they're just, you know, not very smart. And sometimes maybe there'll be a little bit of both. But, you know, we do have the answers. We have the answers. The people have responded well to this message, much stronger than I ever believed. And the magnificent thing over the past year and a half has been the rallies, the people coming together. Because what I have found, and I see it all the time, is the message of liberty and the Constitution. It brings us together regardless of our personal beliefs. If you know and understand what the First Amendment is all about and what freedom is all about, we can take a crowd like this, and what your personal religious beliefs are not relevant. They're relevant to you and to your family and your children and all, and that's very important in what you do in your community. But in a free society, it's really not relevant. What we have to do is agree that we have freedom of choice in social behavior. That's what we want. Protecting those values than others, but unfortunately they're the same ones who think you don't have a right to spend your own money. Now, our conclusion is, and the freedom message is, in a free society you have the right to run your own life, you have the right to earn as much money as you want, and you have the right to spend it any way you want. You can't come crawling to the government to go to your neighbor and bail you out. If you don't take care of yourself and take care of your retirement and your medical needs, you can't go to your neighbor and send the government there to bail you out. Freedom really works, and it is popular. Unfortunately, what we're facing is that we have become a nation that has lost confidence. And I think what we're seeing here, occurring here in the last year or so, is our confidence is coming back. Confidence that freedom does work, and that we don't have to depend on the government from cradle to grave. It's obvious the foreign policy is a failure. It's obvious that the Federal Reserve System is a failure. It's obvious that we shouldn't even have the IRS and the tax system. That's a total failure. There's only debt there. The elderly now, who have paid into the system, are starting to receive. They have an inflation rate of 10 or 12%, and they get increases in their benefits, maybe 2%. So they're losing. No wonder they feel like there's a recession going on. So and salaries under these conditions never keep up. So people are in a recession, and this country is. And it's very, very serious because not so much because we will be living beneath our means, but ultimately it means that our freedoms will be threatened. And I think that is what's happening today.